If you think Microsoft Paint is the pinnacle of graphic design software, then this is the episode for you. Today's episode, I'm joined by Seso, absolute wizard over at 100 Thieves. I
Thank
use Adobe every day, but I think we have different programs because what he produces in Adobe Suite is entirely different than what I produce. So it's good that we've got him along. Firstly, thank you for taking the time, mate. I appreciate it.
Of course, brother. Of course.
And so let's get into that straight away, actually. So, are you aware of Tactical Rab?
Am I? No.
Okay, he does all the COD drama stuff, all the CDL drama stuff. British guy,
Okay.
speaks really quick, right?
Okay.
He does pretty well on YouTube, like 2 videos a day, probably like 50k per video.
Oh, okay.
He's the one who gets tagged in all the COD drama. He still makes his thumbnails. I say still, he makes his thumbnails in Microsoft Word.
That's possible.
Have you heard of that before? Because I
Wait,
spoke to him like a year ago.
Wait, so you put it? Oh wow, that's different. I mean, you could. Props to him at this point. I don't have. That's just weird. I'm not gonna say anything else besides that. He does drama stuff, so I'm gonna say nothing else besides that. But
Yes,
okay,
he's one of the good
that's
guys
different.
actually who does the drama stuff. But
That's different.
it's all very flamboyant colours and stuff. I'll send you a link after this because you may actually be able to tell. I fully stand by the fact that his his graphics are awful, his thumbnails are awful, but they do the job seemingly.
As long as he's not using Arial, I think he should be like A-okay in the clear. Because honestly, just why are you doing that? What's up? Is it Arial? What's the font choice?
It could be. It could be.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I'm not an expert on fonts at this point. I'm getting that way, but I've got a way to go. So the first thing I want to ask, it's a very rudimentary thing, but I think it's valuable for people. Like, what was your first job, like paid, voluntary, whatever, when it came to like graphic design?
My first ever paid project. Well, I guess I would say I started paying or getting paid for projects like at a very quick kind of in. Okay, let's start from the past. Like let's just say like I was charging like $1 per banner back in the day. $3 for a logo, and these banners and logos are definitely not anywhere near the standard of your $60-$80 range banners nowadays, of course, which would be like the inflation of whatever, right? They weren't great, but I had people who supported me, and I kind of, it was $1. It didn't mean much in the sense of like money wise, that's a lot of money, but I got paid for it, which was like, hey, gave me a little bit of inspiration. I can possibly get something from it. My first ever like big purchase of any sort was probably being a thumbnail designer for one of the FaZe guys back in the day. He was paying me like $300 a month. I was like, this is the coolest thing in the universe. I'm getting $300 a month. This is amazing. This is cool. Then that kind of just started making me feel like, oh, I can be a thumbnail designer, making a little bit of money here, doing YouTube over here, and enter some sources of income. So I would say like that's my first, and the person who was FaZe Adapt, it was the homie back in the day. And just treated me right. And he was a really good guy. Shouted me out on my YouTube channel as well. I got like 7,000 subscribers. It was very beneficial for me. So I'll take that. That was a solid payment for me.
How did you go about making that happen? Did you just like DM him one day out of the blue and it worked?
I definitely was like a big fan, of course. And then I was on Twitter, kind of like him, just like he's always posting things. I personally noticed that his thumbnails weren't the greatest. Not to say I was even nearly as good as whatever, but I was like, I could probably do better than this. So I was like, hey, like if you need thumbnails, let me know. And then like a few weeks go by, actually, unheard of, unseen, whatever. I didn't even know he liked it or saw the comment, but he hits me in the DM. He's like, hey, I need a thumbnail for this video in like an hour. Can you do it for me? I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, let's do it. So he obviously took note of it. Whether or not he acted on it was like one thing or another, but of course, when you need help and you're in a pickle, you get these situations where you kind of need someone to help you out. Someone offered it to you, then why not go to that person?
Do you think like thumbnails are still a good like entry point for designers at this point? Because in my mind, I've like bringing this series together, I've been looking into like the best practices, and obviously they change over time. But at the moment, it's a bit of red, a bit of blue, and you want like 3 points of interest and stuff, right? So you also have to know almost like what works in the overall YouTube system, as
Yep.
well as like how to put together a good thumbnail generally. So is that even like an effective avenue to go down at the beginning anymore, would you say?
1,000,000,000%. I mean, even if you're looking at it from a standpoint before we even go into like the design portion of it, and even if you're looking at it from like a financial standpoint, people are making $2,000-$3,000 easily a month doing thumbnails for not even like maybe like 1 million subscriber channels and whatnot, because they can, of course, they can ratio that. That also helps them with taxes, things like that. For the record, though, I think thumbnails have a lot more to do with just like using a sky and a face. I think there's a lot about how placement works, how using repetition of like a same font works, how like certain facial expression can evoke a mood. Maybe it's like a confusing mood where you want to confuse the person to click into it. Not always it's like I want to click into this video because I don't know, for whatever reason, you can invoke an emotion. So having that
Mhm.
ability with however you see it organized, of course, you got to ask the creator for a photo. What's the best screenshot for it? There's a lot that goes into it. So there's definitely a lot of design practices. And personally, I would say I even started that way. So I mean, I'm gonna 100% be like, yo, if you want to be a thumbnail designer, there's easy entries there, and it's a really good way to also get familiar and network with a lot of homies. And one client turns into three clients turn into two clients, whatever happens, you
Mhm.
can just I think it's a great place to be.
Awesome stuff. And I want to touch on like getting those kind of jobs a little bit later on. So
Okay.
let's tease people now and say you have to stay tuned in now if you want to know tips for getting those kind of
Oh,
gigs later on.
100%. At the end of this video, you're gonna be coming out of this with like, dude, how did I not think of this? These people are geniuses. They're gonna put me on the map. Well, I guarantee it. As long as the questions are good, which I'm 100% sure they are gonna be, I would stick around.
All right, no pressure, no pressure.
No, no pressure, no.
But when I was speaking to a couple of people, because you've got some fans among my friends, right? I was
Oh,
telling them
one
that I'm
sec.
recording with you soon, and one of them asked, "Is it just you and George that are in the graphical design, like the design department for 100 Thieves?" And I said, "Surely not, because they've got LA Thieves, all the creators, all the teams and stuff." So what's kind of the setup at 100 Thieves when it comes to the design aspect?
Gotcha. Before I comment on that, I want to let
Hmm.
you finish that so I can clap back into it. It says I had an error saving. I think I need to free up space or something like that. Until you clear space, the site stored in your device. Choose a space to clear. Have you ever seen that before? It says problem saving local
No.
audio.
I'll pause Zoom and then yeah. So when we secured this and agreed that we'd speak, I told a couple of friends of mine that I was going to be recording with you because they're kind of in your space as well, in the design
Yep.
space, and they're fans of yours, and they were asking questions such as, "Is it just yourself and George that work in 100 Thieves?" Because they're only aware of you two basically at 100 Thieves in the design
Yeah.
department. But I was like, no, as LA Thieves and all of the teams within 100 Thieves, and then also the creators, which I assume you do some work for as well. So
Mhm.
if you could you give us a bit of a rundown on the setup there at 100 Thieves?
So let's start from like the first year or so they had I would say the first 4 months of like 5 6 months 100 thieves was like alpaca back in the day.
Yeah.
I joined alongside 100 thieves as like the 14th employee. It was me and alpaca kind of doing these two things together. Then alpaca then went to study to like be a doctor, which is cool as heck, so whatever, good for him. Then it was me basically doing quite literally everything for about 2 years. After that 2 year
Wow.
mark, and I mean literally everything you can think of, logos to thumbnails to creator support to 100 thieves to marketing to everything, and it was a crazy experience where the point I was like, guys, I need help, right? And it
Hmm.
wasn't that it was unknown that I needed help, but they were just like making sure that can you be able to manage this and that, giving me manager training. That's when George came along about 2 years ago, now a year and like 7 months, 6 months, or whatever like that. And he was just a brilliant choice. I was like, we're doing like this really fun typography idea where we're like using, Swiss kind of style. And he was his whole portfolio was a Swiss style, had motion experience. So I was like, this guy's perfect. And ever since it's been, how do you say, me and George on the main front for, most of the time now. But around 5 months ago now, we invited Raw the Monster, known as Kevin, who used to be at Rise. And I finally got him out of Rise, which is
Hmm.
funny because he was the guy who actually got me or helped me into 100 Thieves, as in like how do I penetrate the system. So I was able to
Okay.
like give back in that way and like we can grow together now, and that was a really cool experience. So in the forefront of the 100 Thieves creative culture, you can say like most of the things that you would see would be myself, George, and Kevin figuring out LA Thieves for Kevin, figuring out like emotion and like things like that from George, and then design from me. And then we have a YouTube channel that's produced, like, we have thumbnail designers, which is Damien for one of them. I think is our only full time designer that we have for thumbnails specifically, and he doesn't really touch much of the 100 Thieves stuff as of right now and anything like that. And I would never say I personally want to restrict someone to do thumbnails only, but in that culture, in this universe where we post like 3 videos a day kind of thing. Like it needs to have that amount of attention. So I would say there's like 4 overall main designers. I mean, of course, freelance outside of that. So that's what I would say the culture of 100 Thieves and our community of 100 Thieves creators looks like.
Insane. And like, you must have like a fairly robust system at this point to like stay on top of everything that he's doing, right? Because 100 Thieves seemingly expands like every month, so
Yeah,
keeping on top of
it's
that can't be easy.
it's definitely not it's not complicated because I have literally veterans on my side. It's like, I mean, these guys are more than resilient, all that good stuff. We have a pretty good work life balance too. I would personally want to say, I can't speak for them, but I would personally say I try to make sure I leave them time and not putting too much on their plates, kind of thing. And it's good because we can almost all do each other's jobs. So if you do need to tag in, tag out, kind of thing,
Right.
there's always that opportunity. But yeah, it's not easy. I'll give you that, but it's not supposed to be because what's the fun? You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm. Yeah, you probably wouldn't change it out for something slow
um,
and
absolutely not.
very systematic, and so one thing I think about it a lot in esports as a whole, and I was thinking about it in the context of this, and I think it makes sense as well. So, how important, if at all, is having like a formal education to graphic
Okay.
design? Because there are probably some self-taught absolute masters out there, and
Yeah.
then there's probably some people that have been to university and college and or taken all the courses online and follow everything by the book. Like, is it necessary?
I would say it's personally, as from a person who dropped out of college after my second year, it's not necessary. But I
Got
also
you.
have George who went to college 4 years, grade school. Like, dude was he and the way he talks and speaks and has that critique knowledge is a lot different than how I would say it. You know, his knowledge is
Hmm.
expanded through like having more words that he's heard over the years going to school to be able to articulate better in that kind of sense. Me, I'm just like, I know what's wrong, but I can't quite figure out how to say it, kind of thing. But knowing what's wrong as well,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just an experience over books. There's no such thing as one's better than the other, but I would definitely suggest that any designer who's in the situation where they can make that choice right now is if you don't have something like 80% possibility, like obviously it's a possibility, it's a chance, right? If you don't have that 80%, stick with school. There's no harm in the world of college and learning through that kind of direction because it gives you an idea of what to do and how to do it, but it won't give you that experience. That's the only like drawback from
Hmm.
college. You're kind of like in a way not wasting time, but putting time and effort into something other than your future self in a weird way, but also kind of like it works weird, in my opinion. I think 4 years of in the actual scene, grinding and doing whatever you feel like you need to do, and then 4 years learning, there's a very, very vivid difference,
For
but
sure.
neither or
Yeah.
will hurt you, I think, in my opinion.
So George is like very technical feedback, and you're like, I'm just not vibing with it, mate. Like the vibe's off.
No,
Like
God,
we
no.
need to we need
I can
you know
articulate
what I mean?
I can
Like we need to
articulate
make this
pretty well.
vibier somehow.
He just has like he just has like I mean, I don't know, I don't want to say too much about what he wants to do in his future, but I know he wants to be a professor too, which is like a really cool thing. So he like
Okay, I could see
obviously
that.
wants that. So like it's great that he can explore that and be like on a YouTube channel, be like, hey, this is the design principles, things like that. I never learned design principles. I had to learn it myself. So I wouldn't know how to articulate
Hmm.
what it means to have the design principle, but I know what it would mean to not like why it's wrong. You know, I would feel why it's wrong.
Yeah.
He knows why it's wrong. It's kind of like a heart over head thing. There's no such thing as either
Hmm.
or being a advantage or disadvantage.
And then, of course, there's YouTube channels like yours, and George has videos as well, and probably Skillshare courses, and a bunch of other YouTube channels out there now that will teach things through people's own experiences
Yeah.
and knowledge. And you can basically learn anything off of YouTube at this point, I believe, unless it's like
Anything.
brain surgery or rocket science.
I mean,
Maybe
I've seen
maybe
TikToks
then
from
go formal.
doctors looking on TikTok and videos on YouTube. I'm sure it freaking happens, man. But like, yeah, I generally
Oh
think you
God.
can be a great graphic designer with just YouTube on its own. Like, there's plenty of people who've went to college and want to teach on their own way, and it might hit or be more clear than that professor than you pay, $80,000, well, not 80,000, $40,000 a year for,
Hmm.
It's like I mean, if you are like 16, you got like 2 years left before you like graduate high school. YouTube should be like, if you want to really learn, you should be in there all day, every day, looking at articles, just like gaining as much information as possible, I think.
That makes sense to me, and it's fine having all the knowledge and the ideas and the creativity in the world, but if you don't know how to utilize the tools to kind of
Mhm.
translate your ideas, right, then that's going to be pretty difficult. Like
Yep.
well, I'm with myself, right? Before I got into esports, I was working a digital marketing job, and my manager at the time used to tell me I was a square and not a creative, effectively. So I'm good in spreadsheets and stuff, right? And
Sure.
writing, I suppose, which I think is creative. But um, so for many years, he kept telling me, "You're not creative whatsoever." Now I'm starting to open up to the idea, like, you know what? Like maybe I have some creativity in me. And as I say at the beginning of this, I use Photoshop basically daily.
Hmm.
Uh, but
W.
what I produce is nothing compared to what you produce, right? So like, how important would you say like the software it is that you use? Because
Mm.
as Canva, which some people swear by at this point, of course, but
Yeah.
then you're tweeting like if you've opened an Adobe program today, you can like this tweet. Otherwise, you don't say this, but basically get the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
Of
what I mean?
course.
Like only true, you have to get your reps in daily. So like,
100%.
is Adobe like the industry standard, and like is anything under that then not worth using in your mind?
I think Adobe is the industry standard because of how like their file system sharing works. It's obviously you're incredibly widely known or already used like the formats PSD, PDFs, things like that, Photoshop document, Photoshop. You know,
Mm,
those things are it's interesting for that reason. Now, for that, I would say before I we don't want to mess with the Canva Infinity users. Trust me, they're great. It's awesome. It's cool. It's just not Photoshop and what I've come up with. Sure, you can maybe you can call it like
yeah.
a grow up thing or whatnot. But I'm sure if you put in 10 years of Canva and 10 years of Photoshop, there probably is not much of this clear, crazy difference. And that's okay. But Photoshop effectively is like a effect program. Canva's a more design layout program. Affinity is more of a
Right.
illustrator vector program. Whichever you put in time to, that's just what you want to gear toward. Then that's exactly what you need to put in time to. Speaking of putting in time, it's the main thing I think any designer needs to actually appreciate is if you're not really opening this program every day, you're obviously not going to get better. If you're not figuring out what the tool does that you've been ignoring for the past 3 years, you're obviously not going to get better. You got to put in like you have to really understand your program and whatever program that is, Canva, Affinity, Photoshop. I would personally say Photoshop. That's just what
Microsoft
it is.
Word.
Yeah, Microsoft Word with the thumbnails. I mean, there's probably somebody out there who's cracked that paint. There's mobile designers out there who are like brilliant, great. Like you can't even tell that it was on a mobile unless they get. I mean, mobile designers love to say they're mobile designers, but it's crazy if they would have never say that. I
Hmm.
wouldn't know. Like it's like, whoa, okay,
Yeah.
that's kind of cool. So there's whatever works works.
Hmm. Yeah, like you could probably have two people achieve a similar result, but go about it in very different ways. It's about how the programs, I guess, enable them to get there, right? And
Yep,
as maybe no wrong answer. It's just whatever works for you, I suppose. But yeah,
yep.
if you're in Paint and Microsoft Word, then I personally, as a non-designer, would still recommend getting the hell
Yeah,
out of
there's a lot
there.
there's a
You know.
lot of cool free options out there. I mean, just
Mm,
name out one if you like Photoshop and you use like whatever reason anything else like a GIMP. There's something called like Photo P. It's
mm.
crazy. It's great. It's a web browser that's kind of for Photoshop, not an ad or anything like that. I'm just saying there's a lot of free options out there. Just saying that you don't got to use the terrible stuff for the record.
No, and of course, people find methods of obtaining Photoshop for free as well,
Of
which
course.
I do not condone whatsoever.
Absolutely
Personally,
not.
as a long
Absolutely
time
not.
Adobe subscriber myself.
I can say in the past
But
I was, but in the future, in the present, no, we're not.
no, 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 of course not. But like, I've got like quite an interesting, what I believe is an interesting exercise, and I'd like for you to
Okay.
like attempt to like steel man both of these sides. So
Okay.
as like having a signature style versus being a jack of all trades. Like I think there are benefits and positives and negatives to both, right?
Okay.
So like, which is best for your mind, or can you build them both up and
Sure.
make arguments for either approach?
So if we start with the specialist, right? Someone who's really good at one thing, it's obviously going to be strong. I think the only issue, or let's say the benefits, is you're great, you're amazing, everyone knows that you're very prevalent in the program, which means you're obviously probably very experienced, very quick, very knowledgeable. There's probably some stuff that you probably there's probably nothing you really can't do if you put the time in for it, which is great. I think the negative about having this one direction, like being only good at one thing, is that that's not what I think the community looks for nowadays. And
Right.
it's a little bit awkward to say. I mean, there's I'm not going to say that's not like it's a 50, whatever works for you, but it's definitely not what the community looks for nowadays. In the sense, if you can produce more for the same amount of money as you would for a specialist, and why not? Like if you like, I'm a graphic designer, I also do motion design stuff. I also flirt with logo design, all that stuff. It's gonna be like, this is the green light. Like this guy's great. We can hire him on for this. He can transition to do something over here for us over here. So there are pros and cons for both. I think being a jack of all trades does mean that you're not really that great at one thing, which is awkward. You might be like, the basis of everything, but sometimes the basics isn't good
Hmm.
enough. So now you need to actually put some time into one thing. Um, there's definitely benefits between both, but I would even call myself like a jack of all trades, master of two. That's what I'm going for. I'm not a master of
Okay.
none. I think I'm a master of two, but I know a lot of different things. And that's okay to have too, because that means if there's like some kind of like skill chart and like video game IRL thing, I got like Photoshop, Illustrator here, motion design like right here, logo design like in the middle. Like it works. But I
Hmm.
do think you have to be a master at something by also putting an
Okay.
effort into other things.
Interesting. And how important is putting in the daily reps? Do you like?
Oh,
I
dude,
I think you subscribe to that.
100%.
Like
I mean,
you make sure you go in and create every day. Like like Beeple obviously has produced something every day for I don't know like 50,000 years at this point. It
yep,
seems like and he obviously sold a piece of art for what was it like 69 million or something.
yeah.
So like,
Not it was.
why do you think it's so important for every single day to load up your program of choice and then get creating?
I think the main thing, and the reason why I do tweet it, I swear it's not only for impressions, even though they do well. But I think the main portion is that people need to understand that if you're not putting in time in the program, you're just not going to get better. If you think you suck at graphic design, well, inevitably you're going to get better if you put time into it. So this whole like culture of like, hey, open up Photoshop, grind this, grind that. It's not trying to be like me, like some kind of like you got to do this, you got to do that. It's just like, hey, open the program, get used to it, feel it out. Design something, because if you design something, you're putting in time, you're putting in whatever, you might experience something different, and you'd be like, "Oh my god, that's a brilliant idea for next time, this time, etc." Even if you're not designing, even like opening up Photoshop is almost like a term of like, "Hey, go to the gym." Adobe program could be a lot of things. I get a
Yeah,
lot of DMs saying like, "Yo, it's not Adobe program, but I went to the gym today." I'm like, "W, man, like, whatever works for you works, right?
that's
If
the
you're putting in the
point. Yeah,
time,
yeah.
that's the whole point of the tweet." But also if you don't have to also just like, go back to design, you don't also have to just do Adobe Photoshop and open it up. You can also look at mood boards. I think the way you generate great ideas is being inspired. If you're moving on uninspired ideas, then you're not moving forward. I think you just have to actually try to put in as much information, as much experiences in your head, which includes mood boards, browsing a Pinterest, a Behance, Twitter, whatever works. It's just going to do you wonders. So if you're not doing that though, you're going to be in a way not behind, but you could be ahead if you just put in work every single day or an hour every day at least, in my opinion.
Hmm. And how do you or what method would you recommend like aspiring or kind of beginning or even experienced graphic designers of obtaining feedback? Because I imagine you get a lot
Ooh,
of messages saying, hey man, I've just put this together, can you have a look at this? And look, you've only got so many hours in the day.
of course.
So like like what's the best way of doing that? Would you say like just banging out on social media? Would you say putting together a portfolio, which I do want to get into in a bit, but like
Mhm.
do you have any methods which you think are probably the best for getting direct feedback? Are there any certain websites or
Okay.
communities?
Let's say if you are, let's just say like if you don't have a strong social presence, because if you do have a strong social presence, I think obviously tweeting it out and be like, yo, getting some, asking for feedback is obviously a good, you're only going to get really goods and bads. But if you can go to those people
Hmm.
who say like this is not that great and period, and you comment down like, hey, why do you not think that? There's a world where like you get a lot of feedback going that way, but I do think not enough people do that. They go like, this is kind of
Hmm.
terrible. And you just go, man, f you, and then that's it. But that guy just might have been like, it kind of just sucks. But if you ask that person why, then they'll be like, oh, I'll tell you
Yeah.
why. Why not? It's because I didn't like this or this or this, and you can be like, okay, I did this for this reason. Then all of a sudden you guys are friends, and you guys that's the guy that you want to go to because he's going to give you the most clearest feedback. But let's say if you don't
Hmm.
have that, I think just have like really genuine friends. Like sometimes it sucks trying to make friends and whatnot in the community, and it's really hard, obviously, and tough. But everyone has to start from somewhere. Don't forget. But yeah, I think at that point having like a really good friend group that who does design as well, and you can be like, hey, what's up with this? How do you like this? And like you obviously think it was better than you, right? You want to make sure get people in your friend group who are better than you. It's obviously difficult to
Of
do
course.
that. But if you get one or two, like even if you get some time where like if like a Seso HQ George or Kevin or something goes live and does portfolio reviews, if you can get on those things, you can get some feedback that way. Um, it's definitely hard though, but a social presence, there's more than just Twitter. There's, you can do like, what is there? I mean, obviously there's like TikTok. I mean, even if you want to, there's people blowing up on TikTok. If you can just do something really cool and be
Hmm.
like, what do you guys think? Like, boom, opens up the world to opinions. It's definitely not easy to do it from like ground zero, but you got to start from somewhere. I say just make friends and hopefully they can give you guys some clear feedback.
And there seems to be a very strong like creative community
Oh
among
yeah.
like designers in esports, right? I see it all the time, and it's really heartwarming because I don't belong to any cliques in esports. I stay on my own, but like I see I
You
see
We'll
in
invite you.
George
You
or
can
yourself
come.
or
You can
someone
come
put.
join us,
"Oh, I'm not creative enough. I'm a square, you see.
bro.
I'd
No,
be
no,
a
no, no.
fraud.
Don't. Whoever said that to you is so mean, bro. Everyone's creative, bro.
But yeah, he was trying to keep me down, you know.
Ugh.
Oh god, yeah. And oh god, I could start doubting myself if I really listen to that. But no, I am creative. Okay, I am creative. But no, it seems a really strong community there.
Mhm,
And would you say that like it's like conducive at all? Like, do you think like having that network of
mm.
people helps raise the tide for everyone that's part of it?
I'm a full on like advocate of we have some of the best creatives in the world in this community. And it's crazy because I
Okay.
think people kind of forget that we are in this community of competitive games, be the best, this and that. And you're just thriving off of that because obviously some of these people who are in the community of esports obviously probably love games. So given that fact, that
Hmm.
same creative like or not creative, excuse me, the same competitive aspect in video games, we want to beat that next person. You put that into art, you're going to get that same thing. So everyone's going to accelerate so fast. You compare the industry from like 2014 till now, it's almost it's mind-boggling. And even saying that 2014 graphics outside of the community were great. But now I feel like if you look into the community and you actually get to know these people, it's surreal how great they are. I would say if you're in the world of esports, or if you're not in the world of esports and you're interested in esports, it's a great place to honestly be because you're gonna immediately feel you're probably gonna feel small, and it's a great feeling to feel small because that means you can get big. I
Hmm.
think the community it's brilliant. I think how do you put it into words? Okay, some of these guys have been in this industry for like 12 years. You know what I mean? And like they're doing great things and they have all this knowledge and they want to just share it and they want to make sure that it's the best it can be. And when one person wins, let's say if like Jesper, who was an illustrator from the community itself, won the Spider-Man poster, that puts all of us like this guy came from what community? The esport community. It looks so cool.
Hmm.
Or when Seso HQ does something for YouTube and it goes big, that guy's in the esport community. It's a really cool feeling because whoever wins, we all win, honestly, at the end of the day, depending on what you feel like winning is. But we all do win. We all feel
Hmm.
something. We all get better and we all put value on our names. We're not just esports creators anymore because I feel like back in the day, the culture was like esports creatives are like these like minions who just kind of like work and do things for you kind of thing. But nowadays, we're looking pretty good. You laugh, but it's okay.
It's really cool. It's it's really cool to see, honestly, man. But like the downside of being so open
Mm,
and stuff, right? I guess is sometimes there are people who like to jack styles, and I can't remember the specific instance, but I'm pretty sure before like 100 Thieves like unveiled like a new style for I don't know, it could be for 100T esports or something along those lines,
sure.
and like an organization like another organization like blatantly ripped it and like just changed it a little bit. I can't remember when this was or who it was, but like
Trust
obviously
me, I
there are
can give you
countless
a bunch
examples
of
of this.
names. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But I feel you on that. So there was something I had to get over. That's something I had to get over immediately. Because I remember in the past, I mean, it was for context. I remember this thing seeing on like E United, and it was the first time I spoke on it. I was like, dude, why? Why would you guys copy this? Like, it's an obvious layout thing, but then you get people who are like, you don't own the rectangle and putting a picture in it. I'm like, no, but it's the
Hmm.
whole layout and the process of me thinking about it and how that can help our, world. it's this awkward thing you have to also then let go, because for one, because of that reason, that's how esports or 2022 esports for 100T's came apart, where I feel like I haven't seen it any better. Where I'm like, if that didn't have happened and we just stick with that for the next 5 years, it might be boring as hell. Now, when you look at it, it's just like, oh, this is actually super dope. So in a way, it pushes you. I'm not out there to say like, yo, take this and this from this community and blah blah blah. Let them have their own story. Make sure you tell your own. But it's not. It's nowadays I see as being inspired by 100 Thieves visuals or Team Liquid visuals or the guard visuals. There's nothing wrong with that. I just think you got to
Mm.
make sure you find your own lane and then place it, because that's how you don't want to make enemies. You definitely won't make any with me, okay? But no, I'm serious. It was hard at first. I was in my little friend group, like, dude, like, why are these guys ripping up? Like, I just come up with this concept, this layout. You see all these different teams, but also at the same time, you got to remember, if we're talking about ABC team and on the 100 Thieves, this ABC team being inspired by 100 Thieves, it's just a flattering look. And unfortunately, when you think about it, if you think of the visuals being the first face of the first face that a person sees, like if you look at 100 Thieves
Mhm.
social graphic, you can say it's 100 Thieves. If you see it from elsewhere, you're not going to think this elsewhere person. You're going to think 100 Thieves. So in a way, it's like a flattering thing, because it just puts us on the map more. So you got to get
Mhm.
over it. I think if you're still that person who gets like really uh angsty about being copied, it's flattering. Get over it, get better, do better. You should be changing up every 6 months or so anyway. So I think, it's one of those things I had to get over.
What's the thinking behind having to change it up every 6 months or so?
So small changes. I'm talking like, let's say if you put things in a rectangle just for visual perspective, like a picture in a rectangle, put it in a triangle. Like small changes like that can influence a different
Right.
spark of interest for something else.
Just keeping things fresh and also making sure you continue to innovate and update, right?
Of course, and that's like not even
And
thinking about story too. But yeah.
okay, okay, and where do you personally draw inspiration from then?
I every Monday I like to get up, look on my Behance, Pinterest, and like look at different things. Sometimes I put in like action words like mythical or armor
Mm,
or a sports or just something like that to just draw something from. Because no matter what, all art is inspired. You're not supposed to feel bad about looking at other people's art and then being like, I want to try this. That's how we all elevate. That's how we all come up with new ideas. Once there's like everything's on the table, all right, what's different now? We see everything. What's different? And that's how things keep on going. So yeah,
mhm.
I would say like, how do you put it? Train of thought just completely annihilated me there.
Of course,
Uh,
no worries, man.
but yeah, I mean, that's all I got there, I guess.
No, no, that's good. I mean, inspiration could come from anywhere, and obviously, different things mean completely different things to like to different people.
Yeah,
So like, I can look at something and it means nothing to me. You can look at it and go, "Oh, that little element there, that's interesting. I'm going to look into
that
that and
that's
maybe
smart to say
implicate
in
it."
the
Right?
sense where I might see something that you don't see, but you might see something that
Mm,
I don't see, and you draw inspiration from the same picture, and we can get five different perspectives on this
for
one
sure.
picture, and it solves for a lot more people's problems. I think it's something to actually take away too.
It's just a shame when some people go to the 100 Thieves Twitter page and just scroll down there solely for their
That's
inspiration,
yeah,
right?
that's the unfortunate part. But it happens, man. It's unfortunate, but I think a lot of the veterans in the community, or like at least the senior designers of your C9, Scene Liquids, 100 Thieves, whatever phase, they all have their own. We all have our own path at this point. You're only going to see people that's copying from these like quote unquote tier 2 teams or 2-3 teams, and that part it's just like at that point, whatever. Like do your thing, get inspired. That's all cool. We'll keep up with our stuff.
That makes sense. And one thing I've noticed is you have a very good knack of looking at the positives or spinning things to make them positives. Like that's a very good quality, and I imagine that only has helped with your success in the industry. So kudos on that. And
Thank you.
two things I want to discuss now.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say they're inherently positive, but no doubt you'll have
Okay.
some equally inspiring answers, right? So
Sure.
in any creative endeavor, there's a creative block. Obviously, the
Mm,
most common you hear of is writer's block, which I seem to deal with every single day
mhm.
these days. But no, like it's a very serious thing, and obviously, imposter syndrome as well is a
Oh,
big thing, especially in our
mm.
industry. I see people talk about that almost daily. So, if you could speak a bit about how you personally like combat creative block and then imposter syndrome.
Creative block and imposter I mean, let me just say, I think as soon as you kind of are introduced to what imposter syndrome is, you might not even you might
Mm,
understand it, but you won't understand it until it happens to you.
mm,
It almost kind of never goes away, and it's just something you have to like
right,
not like deal with, but understand what your own person is. Like Seso HQ, technically in the universe of the esports, is like I hear it all the time where I'm like I'm the best, or I'm this, or I'm the creative representative, I'm the most popular designer, whatever. I hear these words, I'm just like, dude, why would you do that to me? And then all of a sudden, I look at this other guy who I feel like is does this crazy, credible, creative thing, doesn't get that much knowledge. I'm like, why is no one hyping this guy up? Like, is what they're saying to me false or is it wrong? And the answer is no. They can feel that way.
right,
Anyone can feel like I'm the best. Someone can feel like Kevin's the best. Someone can feel like George is the best. Someone can feel like XYZ from other team is the best. There's something that has to, and sometimes you don't hear that you're the best, right? And that's okay. I think imposter syndrome is a very, very nasty look. I don't know the solve for it personally, but I do think understanding like where you are and actually like grounding yourself in the scenario, like I'm in a great spot. Like I'm in a genuinely beautiful spot. A lot of people know me. A lot of people I can pretty much bring my name anywhere and it can help and I can solve a lot of problems. Like I'm confident in my ability in the world of design where I feel like I don't need to like feel I shouldn't have to feel this way, but I do. I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Then we go to like designer block or creative block. It's just
mm,
another world. But I think a lot of the times where creative block comes in is because of the way I was raised in the community, where I feel you go into Photoshop first rather than thinking about what to do before. Like not writing things down
got
or
you,
having a plan, having a brief, having a visual, or excuse me, not a visual, a written down in Word format how to get to point A to point B. It saved me so many times. I can sit here for 8 hours. I'm like, someone tells me I need to make, for instance, like a pirate themed something. And I'm just like, what? I can start with like putting in a ship in or whatever, but once it gets muddy, it's uninspired, it's unclear. But having those words and putting it into words is your best bet. And you're like, okay, I can't come up with words, so okay, let's go back to visuals. Let's just put some visuals in our in our system. Let's go for a walk. Let's completely forget about it, right? Like literally X out of your mind. There's unfortunately, once you have, I personally believe this, once you have creative block, imposter syndrome, it never goes away. You just find ways to get through it and not over it or not
right.
going to say ignore it. You find ways to get through it. And soon enough, it's going to be like, oh, that doesn't bother me too much. I know how to solve this. I know how to solve this because you've solved this somehow, but some people don't solve it. That's okay too. The answer to your question, the unclear answer is just get as much experience as possible. Get as much influence as possible. Get as much visual influence. Get as if you haven't read a book in your entire life yet, maybe it's time to pick up a book. Different experiences unlock different things and different paths that you can take, and you might realize that just like I don't know, like picking up your clothes, like your workspace is terrible. Like it's little things that actually help solve these little things or bigger things. You just have to just gotta try different things. There's no clear answer, I think, but try different things, and I feel like
Mhm.
you'll be in a better scenario.
That makes sense. And you said like picking up a book. Like one book I'd like to recommend to anybody who's kind of struggling in this area is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. He
Mm,
kind of personifies both of these problems and other problems with like the word resistance with a capital R, and he talks about
mm,
basically how to overcome resistance or just like putting a name and maybe a face to it, and instead of it just like, oh, I have nothing to do, like you're
mhm.
actually going up against some force that's trying to stop you creating. And it's a very interesting book, and
Huh,
me personally it's helped me a lot. And I think some of the time imposter syndrome comes from just like blatant insecurity, which I mean
yeah,
most people come up with in some aspects, right? But another part is like, so an imposter is like you're in a position that you don't feel like you deserve to be in. And I
mhm.
think that is actually a sign of you challenging yourself and you developing some sort of growth or going through some sort of growth. So
Beautiful way
like
to think
it's
about it.
actually maybe an essential it's an essential compound within growth and
I
evolving
would
and becoming better. So maybe if you are experiencing imposter syndrome, maybe you are an imposter right now, but like you can fake it until you make it and
yeah, that
maybe get
means
over to the other
you're
side.
aware of the things that you can work on. That's a really good way to put it. I mean,
Mm,
I never thought of it that way
mm,
personally, but that means that means there's obviously something that you know you can do, but you're not working on or doing actively right now today. So I mean, that's a really cool way to look at it. I think it could be seen as a quote unquote positive in a way, but most people kind
Mm.
of see it as a negative. But I like the way you kind of put it. Maybe I feel like that might solve a lot of people's problems when they see this one. They're like, "Oh,
We'll
I
make
get it
sure.
now. I'm not actually terrible. I just have to start working harder or something like that." But like, I can go a completely
Who'd have
different
thought
route.
it?
I like
Who'd
that.
have thought it? I'll make sure that our social guy at Hitmarker clips that one then, eh?
Yeah,
That
100%.
that clip for the socials. And the last thing I want to talk about is like portfolios, right? Because
Mm,
one thing is doing the work,
hmm.
and another thing is making sure it's on and oddly fastened so you can present it to people and have proof that you are good at what you do. And also, I think it's a way of maybe like clocking your progress over time if you've
Mhm.
got a continuous portfolio. So, like, first thing I'd ask is, do you still keep a portfolio up to date yourself even while you're in a job? And also, like, which what is the best software, perhaps, or how do you see best to create a portfolio right now for graphic designers?
Sure. I think for one, there's incredibly good sites, Adobe Portfolio, Behance. Obviously, like if you want to go more to your website, Squarespace, Wix are great, website hosts for portfolios. Before going to that, though, to answer your first
Mm,
question, I don't actually keep my portfolio updated. I've always liked to consider my portfolio as my YouTube channel. I lived
yeah.
by that for as many years as I've been around. I've always kind of seen my portfolio as my YouTube channel. I'm like, guys, if you want to see what I'm doing, it's literally right there. You can see me doing it. You can see how I think about it. It's really cool to me. And I feel like for one, not only just having a source of your visual representation, but also your thought process, like having like a thought out brief of like how you got to this visual look is very valuable for one, but also something I think
Hmm.
some people don't really consider, and what I considered in the beginning was entertainment. People want to know the kind of person you are too. I feel like having, and it's not saying everyone has to be a creator, but we kind of do live in a world where almost everyone around you is a creator of some sort, and it's a little
Yeah.
bit of
Yeah.
a, like it might be awkward. I'm not that good in front of the camera. You can learn. I was awful. I was terrible. You can look at my
You'll get
first
good.
videos. You
Yeah.
will get
Yeah.
way better. You will get more comfortable, and you'll realize it's just a really cool. You're a cool person. Let people see it. You know what I mean? So like things like TikTok
Hmm.
or just posting your speed arts on YouTube or anything like that. Or like let's say you want to do like a 1 minute speed art on Twitter and talk over it and talk about how you feel or something like that, or what you felt like, how you got to point A to point B. Having that experiential or mental connection with someone is almost as valuable as having that impression of like, oh, your work is good. It's just as good in my opinion, because that's kind of how I got to my point. I didn't have a very strong portfolio personally. I didn't even think personally I was a great
Right.
designer when I first got in. And even great designer on the first 1 to 4 years. And I was like, I'm just kind of doing YouTube. People liked who I was, who liked my ideas. They were like, oh, so I use your idea for this. And I'm like, oh, dude, that's a great idea. Can I take this over here and show it over here? Dude, so yeah, of course. Boom, boom. And it's just kind of like this networking thing that happened for me. So besides, I think
Hmm.
using like a visual representation, I think having a visual look, an actual like thought out brief of like how you got to point A to point B, like, hey, the reason why we implied, I start using 100T's for instance, when we invoked the unapologetically thieves, what did that mean creatively? And I was like, okay, I don't know. And that's the point. You got to solve for it. So what that meant was like, hey, we're going to use the 100 Thieves logo pattern as the trademark look to 100 Thieves socials for 100 Thieves esports. And that way we can like, that's what it means. It means 100 thieves. What does it mean to be a thief? Oh, dude, that's a tough question. What does it mean to be a thief? We don't want to be like a thief who just we don't want to be those thieves who has the bag over the head with the mask on. We want to be the thieves that are in like Ocean 11, like doing the precise, like thought out way of interacting with whatever we're interacting with. So what does that mean? Is it like little small notes? Is it like writing on top of like this perfectly cool graphic where you're putting like good luck, GG, a really intensive feeling, all those different things? If you can explain why you did that, someone who doesn't know or appreciate art, which you shouldn't expect people to know what art or feel how to feel when they look at your stuff. If you can explain it, you're in a 10 time better position than 90% of the community immediately. Then if you can apply
Right.
some like who you are as a person, like a video or like TikTok or whatever, they can like look at your socials and feel who you are as a person. Are you funny? Are you like super intellectual when you speak? Are you like um just down to earth, whatever that kind of whatever emotion, we can be like, I would love this person because one, their art's good, but dude, this guy's a great guy. This girl's a great girl. Like, you know what I mean? Having that as well is very valuable. So I would say visual, entertainment, and thought process.
And one thing you didn't mention there, but is very clever as well. Eventually, after a while, if you pick up some steam, then you are also monetizing your portfolio
Oh, 100%.
if
Yeah,
it's on
dude, yeah,
YouTube,
absolutely.
right?
I
So fair play
great.
to you on that front. But
Yeah,
also, it can kind of almost operate as a, a personal testimony. Like they can see who you are, how you are, if you'd fit in
mhm,
with their culture. So if someone's like a
exactly. Oh,
prospective
dude.
employer, right, as well. So
Yep,
while it's good, like connecting with other people as well, like it adds another dimension to you on the potential job
100%.
hunt or
The
or
word
gig hunt, right?
culture you just said is the perfect word, I think. Literally every team has their own culture. Maybe it's witty, funny, maybe it's, serious and, or maybe you're just like you just do your intrusive thoughts, like you just post the craziest things on socials. That culture, if they can see that, that's an instant W2. That's a great way to put it too. Look at you, dude. You're getting clips everywhere for Hitmarker. Let's go.
There we go. My God. So maybe I'm not too bad after all, and I should be
Heck
doing these,
no.
eh?
Heck no.
So f you to my old manager, yeah. That's that's what
He
we figured
is
out at this
creative.
point.
Screw you. Let's go.
I'm gonna send him that clip directly. But no, man. Like, in terms of timing, like, we're gonna wrap that up here. I appreciate you taking the time first and foremost, but I deem it important to give you an opportunity to plug whatever you wish to plug right now.
I would like to plug obviously my socials. If you guys would like to learn graphic design or even be entertained by the world of art, sesohq.com. You can just look and see my YouTube channel or youtube.com/sesohq. Follow me on Twitter, all that good stuff. If you possibly don't, I'm not going to say whatever. But also, I would like to also mention it's not supposed to be easy. For the record, it's not supposed to be easy. I think it's really easy to kind of see other people's perspective and how they put it out in the world. But obviously, don't forget, we only put out the best stuff. I'm only going to tweet out the most, in my opinion, the most positive stuff because it's going to be the most uplifting to most people. I don't want to be a negative against most people. Doesn't mean I'm not negative. You know what I mean? So don't forget, it is not supposed to be easy, but that's what makes it really fun. You can look back in 2 years and be like, dude, that was hard. That was crazy. How did I do it? Oh, let me go teach it. So don't stress about
Mhm.
it. And I like to end off my videos oh, whoa, that was crazy. I almost completely forgot. But keep smiling, stay positive, and stay freaking productive. And that's kind of how I like to end it off.
Okay, lovely stuff. And I would just say, on a personal note, go follow Seso if you don't already, especially if you're trying to get started. Integrate into his community, follow the people that interact with him a lot, and soon enough you will be in the heart of it all. And obviously, watching this, you'll then become a professional instantly. That's how this
And it's
video
great.
works.
It's really fun
Uh,
over here once you get
so
past all the
you'll be in
creative
the
block and
community.
imposter syndrome.
There you go, man. So go follow him. Obviously, go follow Hitmarker on Twitter as well. But more
Oh,
importantly, follow me.
let me say,
No,
I forgot this
no,
point.
I'm joking.
Hit
I'm joking.
marker,
Go, man.
dude. Hit marker is how I got I saw the hit marker post on 100T's, and that's when I went to go apply. I swear to God. I'm
Oh,
just saying,
really?
I swear I followed them. I preach by you guys. I swear to you, I would not have seen that email or that position open if it wasn't for the fact, I swear to God, if I wasn't following Hitmarker, and that's not, I swear, just saying that. I said it multiple times on my videos
That's
too, so
that's the
I'm not even
best
lying.
testimony we can get. That is
I
the best
swear.
testimony we can get. So
So
yeah, make sure you're going to hitmarker.net if you're looking for those kind of jobs. Obviously, we have to plug that as well. And thank you for taking the time, and I appreciate it.
of
And
course.
for being such a positive figure in the obviously the esports design community, but esports as a whole, we do appreciate it,
Oh,
man.
thank you.
So thank you everyone for watching. Stay tuned next week for another episode. We'll catch you then. Cheers.